Hi everyone, Alex here from ornamentdesigns.com, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to make something like this. So I know this looks complicated, but as the title suggests, it is not. It is simple, it is easy, it's quick. This only took me a couple of hours to make, and I bet it won't take you very long either. So basically what this is a basic kimekomi ornament or cut and tuck style fabric ornament with just a bunch of bling on top of it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you head on over to my beginner's kimekomi ornament tutorial, let you learn all of the basics that you need to know of how to make a basic kimekomi ornament. Then you can come back here and I'll teach you how to put the bling on it to make it look fancy like this. And this is a great project to do while you're on your holiday vacation. Maybe, you know, if you've got a bored teenager in the house that likes to do some crafting, this is perfect. In fact, this is exactly, that's exactly how I started doing this. I was 16. It was holiday vacation from school. I was bored. I had nothing to do. My mom brought out some craft supplies and said, make a Christmas ornament. And I did. It was beautiful. And the next thing you know, I was completely addicted. And here it is 25 years later, and I am still doing it. So, yeah, so this is a great holiday project for just about anyone. It doesn't have to be just a teenage girl. It can be anybody who's into crafting things. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this tutorial. Like I said, to learn the basics, please go to that video, and I will have a link here somewhere up here in the video for you to go check that out and then come back here and learn how to make something like this. Here's a list of the tools that I used to make this ornament. And these are the materials that I used. Now this is just a suggested list. Now of course there are a few things here like the foam ball and the fabric that you absolutely will need. But a lot of the other things you can kind of take it or leave it. It's up to you depending on what you want to do with your ornament. Alright, as you can see, I've already drawn some lines on my foam ball and plotted some points in the equator. And plot points for a simple 8 division, and then you're going to draw the lines for a simple 4. You've divided your ball into 4 equal sections, and then you've got a point on the equator in between each of those sections. As I said before in my introduction to this video, I'm not going to go into the details of how to draw these lines and plot these points. You can find the details for that in my beginner's kimekomi ornament tutorial. And again, I'll put the link up here for you. Head on over there and learn how to do those basics, and then come back and you can continue on with this ornament. Okay? Okay, so next step is to cut your lines. You're going to use your craft knife and cut about 1 centimeter deep on all 4 of the lines that you drew. Next, you're going to take your tucking tool and you're just going to run your tucking tool through the cut lines just to widen them up a bit to make it easier to do the tucking part. Alright, now I'm going to cover my foam ball with satin fabric. I've got this beautiful sort of light gray, shiny satin fabric. It almost looks silver. It's so shiny. And the gray is so light that you could almost mistake it for white. It's a really nice color. I think it's really lovely, and it will look very nice on my tree. So as you can see here, I'm not using quilt batting. For this particular ornament, quilt batting is completely unnecessary. Though one of the things I did forget to mention in the beginning is that for this kind of ornament, you should probably try to get a ball that doesn't have any dents or imperfections because we're not using quilt batting. When you use quilt batting, it can kind of cover up those imperfections, but when you're not using quilt batting and you're using a thin fabric like the satin, any dents or lines or any kind of imperfections in your ball will show through. As you can see, that black dot in between the lines that we drew is showing through. And there's a very good reason for that. It's going to help us place our embellishments later when we're done covering this ball with fabric. So let me go ahead and skip ahead to the next step. All right, so now that our ball is completely covered in the satin fabric, we're going to get out our sequin trim and some pins. Now I'm using 3/4 of an inch sequin pins. You can use just regular straight pins. That's fine. About an inch, not much longer than an inch in length is probably good. That also depends on the size of the ball that you use. The smaller your ball, the shorter your pins should be. So I'm also going to use some pearl-headed pins here as well. All right, and so from here, we're going to start pinning on our sequin trim. And you'll want to focus mainly on the poles, making sure it's pretty secure at the top and the bottom of your ornament. But just sort of randomly placing straight pins wherever you think is necessary to keep that sequin trim in place along those cut seams. Continue placing your sequin trim along the seams until all of your seams are covered. And here's what it looks like when all 4 seams are covered with sequin trim. Okay, so now I'm going to place the jewelry findings that I have. I think that's what they're called. I tried to look it up. I think they're called jewelry findings or jewelry connectors or something. I basically have found these in the jewelry making section of my craft store. And there are only 2 in the package. So actually I'm going to have to sort of change my design up a little bit here because of that. So I'm going to pin with my pearl-headed pen this jewelry finding right in the center there where the black dot is that you can see that shows through. And that is so it can be nice and perfectly centered on the ball. And that looks pretty good. And I'll turn the ball over, and on the opposite side, I'll pin the second one. Now I've reinforced this. I've put actually 3 pearl pins in each of those oval embellishment things on each side, as you can see. But since I only have 2 of those, I've got to do something on the other 2 sections of my ball. So I'm going to go ahead and put another line of sequin trim. Now you can see I've got that 3rd line of sequin trim going all the way around the ball. And from here, I'm going to take my pearl pins and I'm just going to start placing them on every other side of the sequin trim here, all the way along each line. Not necessarily in any particular pattern. I guess what I'm doing is I'm just kind of doing alternating sides here. You can do it however you want, just to give it just a little bit extra something. It adds a little extra dimension. It adds a little bit more bling. Just just adds a little something extra. You don't have to do this. You can leave your trim as is, but I'm going to go ahead and continue all the way around on each line and continue to put these pins. All right, now I've brought out a couple of things. I've got some dark blue loose sequins. I've got some dark blue bicone beads, and I have some pearl rice beads. And I'm going to use these to kind of just elaborate upon what I've done in the middle here. I feel like the pearl pins here are getting kind of lost in all of the silver and white. So I'm going to add some blue sequins behind each of those pins. Just to make the pearl kind of pop more, to give that center focal point some more color and some more vibrance. And now I'm going to add 4 blue bicone beads around the center pin. Now you'll notice that I haven't been gluing any of this stuff in. Actually, I recommend, if you're going to do this, I recommend that you use some craft glue and dip the ends of your pins in the craft glue before you do the pinning. The reason why I'm not gluing these down is because I'm just doing this as I go along. I don't really have a plan from this point. I'm just kind of winging it here. And if I need to pull anything out, I don't want to leave behind a mark of glue. So I'm not gluing anything down right now. But if you're making this, you want this to be a permanent thing and you don't want your beads or your sequins to fall out, I highly recommend using some craft glue or even just like some white Elmer's school glue or something, dipping the ends of your pins in the glue before you pin it on the ball. Okay, so now what I'm doing here is I'm pinning a bicone bead and a sequin around the edge of my oval shape. And I'm using, there's little grooves in this oval shape, so I'm able to judge the spacing, keep things nice and even. And I'll pin 5 on one side, and I'll turn it around and pin 5 on the other side. Okay, so now that that's done, now I'm going to add some of these pearl rice beads to the top and bottom of that shape. I'm going to thread a pearl rice bead and a sequin onto a pin and then pin it there. And I'll pin 3 right on the end, just like that. Then I think I'll add a couple of more. Like I said, I don't really have a plan. I'm just sort of winging this and just, you know, seeing what looks good. And instead of putting a pearl pin in the last, as the last one, I'm going to use a bicone bead. And I think that looks really good. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. Okay, so now I finished that center embellishment on both sides of my ball. And I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to finish off my ornament by pinning some bead caps and some beads on the top and bottom. I'm also going to do a nice big bow. At the bottom, I'll take an extra long pearl pin, a big blue bead, and a silver bead cap, and pin that right to the south pole or the bottom of the ball. Next, I'll do the same thing. I'll thread the big blue bead and the bead cap onto that pin. And then I'm going to make a big bow. Now, once again, I'm not going to go over in full details of how to make a bow because I actually have a video that's completely dedicated to how I make my bows. And there's more than one way to make a bow. There's several different ways that you can make a bow, and each of them has a different look. So you can go to my bow making video, which I'll put a link up here too. And you can also go to my website that has a link to some other bow making videos and tutorials that other people have done if you prefer a different kind of bow. And now I'm going to pin my finished bow to the North Pole or the top of my ball. And I'm done. I highly recommend that you glue your bow down and use some extra straight pins to reinforce your bow, just so that as you know, over the years, as it's hanging on your tree, it does tend to loosen up a bit. So the more you reinforce it, the better off it's going to be for years to come. So yeah, so that is my finished ornament. And I could keep on going and adding more stuff and, you know, put more detail into it, but I'm pretty happy the way it looks right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and stop here. All right, so here is what the final product looks like on my Christmas tree. I think it looks really good. I'm pretty happy with my work. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!